What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in and talk about top weapons in Season 6 of Destiny 2. So we've got quite a lot of ground to cover right here. We'll touch on buffed and new exotics, new weapons that are going off in PvP and PvE content. I wanted to talk a little bit more in this video about Joker's Wild Weapons, some of the specific drop sources, new perks, and some recommendations there, and we'll talk about the general weapons sandbox a little bit, as well as a quick recap on exotic catalysts, which should finally become available during this season. So if you guys enjoyed this video, or have any favorite new or updated weapons, then let us know down in the comment section, because of course it's hard to cover absolutely everything in one video, but otherwise guys, let's jump right into it. Some of the first stuff I wanted to touch on would be some of the exotic changes. Of course, specifically, Bungie looked at a lot of different heavy weapons, but also some changes to shotguns, and Lord of Wolves is one of the weapons which really benefited from this. The shotguns essentially got their damage doubled in PvE content across the board, and Lord of Wolves is now a DPS monster. The overall buff, combined with its ability to hit crits, because of course Lord of Wolves is a pretty accurate weapon, being a kind of burst fire shotgun, and when you pair that with Release the Wolves, which is the kind of intrinsic bonus, it allows you to double the projectiles that you can fire in a burst by defeating enemies for a short time, and the weapon puts out some seriously good damage. It also might be buffed by 10% because it has kind of full auto on it. I'm not sure if that affects this weapon, but regardless, it ends up being really good for bosses, any tanky targets. It could be really nasty for Gambit with the right setups, you know. It might struggle for boss DPS in Prime because you're not always close to the boss, but in normal Gambit, or potentially things like the Reckoning, where you're going to be pretty close to tanky targets, this thing is really nasty, so don't sleep on Lord of Wolves. On the subject of exotics, of course, the Legend of Acreus did actually see a big damage buff before Season 6, but on top of that, going into this season, it actually got a rate of fire buff. So Acreus is even nastier. It's the highest damage shotgun in the game right now per shot, and while it can't necessarily do the sustained damage of something like Lord of Wolves, Acreus is still an absolute monster. Other exotic stuff which is worth a mention would be things like Wardcliff Coil, which is pretty popular at the moment. PvE damage was increased by 115% against boss combatants, and even up to 160% against weaker stuff. So when it comes to burning bosses down, Wardcliff is actually a really good option now, assuming you've got the ammo. We had some pretty ridiculous primeval melties in this thing in Gambit. It won't be perfect for DPS if you're further away, but if you're on top of stuff, and if you could teamfire with it, Wardcliff is an absolute monster. One that's worth a very quick shout would be 1000 Voices. Of course, this got a hefty buff, and we're seeing a lot of solar burn and heavyweight kind of reckoning modifiers at the moment, and wherever you have that, 1k Voices is really monstrous, so still, it's a very, very good option. But moving on to the PvP side a little bit right here, of course, the returning exotic right now would be the Thorn. So importantly for this weapon, it can actually 2-tap inside of PvP, but to do that you have to use Mark of the Devourer of course, paired with Soul Devourer, and that's when you pick up a remnant that Thorn drops. It basically strengthens that damage over time, as well as partially refilling the magazine, and so it makes Thorn really nice in PvP and PvE because of that. In terms of general PvP performance, Thorn feels pretty similar to how it always has. It's a really solid option if you can use it well. The recoil is a little bit more severe than some other weapons in this class, and the flinch feels kind of severe as well with this weapon, but otherwise, it does feel generally solid. However, it doesn't really break the meta in PvP. You've still got Luna's Howl and Not Forgottens and stuff like that, or really any of the other hand cannons that are good right now. Thorn kind of slots in there, but certainly doesn't take over, kind of like the Last Word in a way. But the legendary hand cannon a lot of folks are talking about would be Service Revolver. And this is a precision frame hand cannon that behaves very much like a Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten. Of course, they're in the same archetype, but also Service Revolver has really good stats at base, coming with just shy of the range and stability that you'd see on Luna's Howl. And remember, that's just at base, so it'll change pretty quickly with the right bonuses. But importantly, you can roll Kill Clip in that second trait slot. I mean, if you've got Kill Clip up, it puts you in that 3-tap territory. You can also roll Rampage, Zen Moment, or things like Opening Shot, but also important is the fact that you can hit range stats, which reach right up into that Not Forgotten territory. So with accurized rounds, or ricochet rounds even, and then rangefinder in that first trait slot, it is pretty damn tasty. Of course, you don't get the free kind of 3-tap from hitting 3 crits, but if you utilize that kill clip, it's certainly possible. The one thing I'd say is that it does reload fairly slowly at base, so if you get a roll with range stats, but also outlaw kill clip, it's going to be really serviceable. So really it's all about the roll with this weapon. And if you want this weapon, of course, then you can actually get them dropped out of the Vanguard loot table, assuming that you earned the Year 1 Service Revolver in Warmind. If you picked up the weapon back in Warmind, it'll already be in the Vanguard loot table, but otherwise you will need to complete the 40 Strike Triumph that's listed on the weapon at Zavala. Nonetheless, it's definitely the closest you can get to a Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten without owning one of those weapons. Another thing on the PvP front would be the Recluse SMG, of course the pinnacle weapon for PvP for Season 6, so I think you have to hit 2100 points and get a bunch of wins. But for the intrinsic bonus right here, kills with any weapon will improve this weapon's damage for a short time. And so, this thing will pretty much shred folks down inside of PvP. Alongside the small SMG buff at the start of the season, the bonus damage that you get when you're making kills with either this or the other equipped weapon is really going to help you chew through some enemies in the Crucible, and it's helped by the fact that the weapon has really solid stability and the addition of ricochet rounds for more range and stability. So yeah, definitely one of the best SMGs we've seen for PvP. You definitely have to be pretty aggressive with this weapon. Obviously, it's a very close range weapon, so you'll be getting into groups of enemies, and of course, you'll be in that shotgun range. So to really go off with the weapon, I think it takes a little bit of doing. But the cool thing about this SMG is that it doesn't really break the game. It isn't as strong as Luna's Howl, purely in terms of the potency of a Pinnacle weapon, but it's a strong weapon nonetheless. Takes a little bit of skill to use. And I've got to say a massive thanks to Fallow for letting me jump on his account and try this one out. But in terms of the PvP meta, the shift really is very minimal right now. You know, the big things that folks talk about in terms of weapons at least, Luna's Howl, all that kind of stuff is really dominant still. Pulse rifles are pretty much in the same place as well. I would say the shotguns right now are a little bit different, but generally they are very present. Some folks are looking at more of the high impact shotguns, you know, as opposed to stuff like Dust Rot Blues, although, once again, that is still very present. But outside of new exotics like Thorn, separate subclass and sandbox tuning, you could pretty much go into PvP with what you had, you know, 3 or 6 months ago, and it isn't massively different. To touch on more Pinnacle weapon stuff though, we do have the 21% Delirium. This is the new Gambit Pinnacle weapon, and it comes with the bonus Killing Tally, where kills increase the weapon's damage until it's stowed or reloaded, and this stacks up to 3 times, so each kill increases damage, kind of like Rampage, but then the damage remains until you put the weapon away, or actually have to reload it. So it's absolutely fantastic for destroying ads. You can kind of prime that Killing Tally bonus and then use it for boss DPS or tanky targets, and it's a really fun weapon to use. It doesn't necessarily do more DPS than the best exotics or machine guns, but of course this is a legendary weapon, and it's really strong, and in PvP as well, it's going to be pretty brutal with that damage buff. You can even kind of use it like a scout rifle, popping a shot at a time at ads, even some of the mid-tier stuff, which is interesting, because this is the first rapid-fire machine gun that we've had. So you can use it in a few different ways. It's a decent grind to pick the weapon up. You need to reset your infamy inside of Gambit and kill Primevals to complete the notorious Hustle Triumph after you've picked up the quest from the Drifter. I definitely recommend this one though if you get the opportunity to grind for it. The other Pinnacle weapon right now would be the Oxygen Scout Rifle that you can get from the Vanguard. Kind of feel like they should have just called this weapon Big Dragonfly. It's pretty fun. It comes with the bonus Meganura. I think that's how you say that. Dragonfly deals more damage based on the number of precision hits dealt to the target beforehand. Definitely one of the best kind of ad-killing scouts in the game, and it's good even when you kind of 1 or 2 tap enemies, but will probably shine in general in larger scale PvE, you know, where enemies take more than a couple of shots to kill, but equally aren't super tanky, right? You kind of want to be hitting stuff 2 or 3 times and making a kill. You get a lot of stuff like that in the Shattered Throne, for example, although I'm pretty certain that the Firefly we're seeing here, I keep calling it Firefly, man, probably because it feels good. The Dragonfly explosion is an absolute ton of fun, and they do seem noticeably better than most other Dragonfly weapons, so definitely, if you enjoy scout rifles and you want a bit of a shout back to some of those Omelon scouts of D1, then definitely don't sleep on this thing. Also, quick shout out to my friends Callum, Easy, Sam, and Fellow for sharing weapons for this video. Now though, let's move on to other new weapons, and of course, we've got the Joker's Wild or the Gambit Prime weapons, which really you don't actually have to play that much Gambit Prime to obtain, because you can get them from the Reckoning instead. So Prime weapon drops in terms of Reckoning are actually associated with bosses, as far as we can tell, and not the tier that you're running it on. So there will be a different featured boss each week. So you might have the Oryx guy one week and then the Blade guys the other week, and you'll see them on both tier 2 and tier 3. So for example, you could get the Spare Rations hand cannon at any tier, but they have the highest drop rate when killing a specific boss. And that would be the Oryx boss that we've got in Reckoning right now. So this is a much easier way to actually get these weapons than relying on the Prime drops, which are pretty hit and miss. But to the best of my knowledge, the likeness of Oryx boss fight can produce the Spare Rations hand cannon, the Outlast pulse rifle, the grenade launcher from Gambit Prime, the auto rifle, or the scout rifle. And then the big blade guys, as far as I know, can drop the bug out bag SMG, the sidearm, the Soul Survivor sniper, as well as the shotgun. So in general, if you're trying to get any of those weapons, definitely just grind Reckoning. It's the most efficient way to do it, although it is RNG. I'm not going to go into all of these weapons, but some standouts would include things like the Soul Survivor. This is a really nice kind of energy, mid-higher impact sniper, decent in PvP or for invading in Gambit, and is capable of rolling with the bonus firing line, where the weapon deals increased precision damage when near to 2 or more allies. So this could be good for some DPS stuff, also will be pretty nasty inside of PvP, You can also get Demolitionist, which is a new bonus. Kills with the weapon generate grenade energy, and activating your grenade ability reloads the weapon from reserves. Spare Rations is a pretty popular one. This is the new hand cannon. I haven't actually picked it up, but it is a lightweight frame hand cannon. It's a little bit like Midnight Coup or something, and you can also roll Rampage or Kill Clip, but it also comes with multi-kill clip. This is a new bonus where you can actually stack damage by making multiple kills and then reloading, so a bit like a cross between Rampage and Kill Clip. But also Subsistence, where kills partially reload the magazine from reserves, but reserve capacity is reduced. There are a couple of others, things like Outlast. Pretty nice rapid-fire pulse rifle. They're not necessarily the best in most types of content, but this one can roll things like Feeding Frenzy and Kill Clip, which I have right here, and you can get some of those new bonuses like Demolitionist. But also for Scout Rifle fans, Night Watch is a new lightweight kinetic scout, which is pretty cool, and that can also get Subsistence, Multi-Kill Clip, and Demolitionist. But otherwise, if you wanted a more in-depth look at all of the roles, curated roles, and new perks, I'll list a video about the prime weapons down below. The very final thing that would be worth touching on right here would be some of the catalysts for Year 1 weapons, which should be arriving this season. So Bungie said that they'd be releasing catalysts from the Year 1 reserves, and this will happen during Season 6. I'll keep you posted as to when that could happen, but the currently listed bonus for a catalyst for Hardlight is for stability, with plus 25 stability. Not sure whether that's going to improve the kind of screen shake or recoil as well. The Suros Regime catalyst lists an improvement to recoil, but was also previously listed with a perk that would guarantee health regen every time the weapon made a kill. So assuming that rolls out on Suros, that actually is going to be a pretty good bonus. But the catalyst for Prospector is going to increase blast radius by 40 points, which is pretty cool. And then finally, the Rat King catalyst was listed with improved aim assist of plus 20 points, but has also been listed as having a healing perk when you trigger the bonus, which actually gives you invisibility after a kill. So once again, these can be pretty cool, and this is the Year 1 reserve that Bungie didn't drop into the game initially, and have suggested that we will be able to get this season. So I'll keep you posted on those, but otherwise, I think that pretty much rounds up everything about weapons in Season 6, or at least the bulk of the information that you'll guys would probably want to know. So let us know down below any weapons that you've really been enjoying, any awesome rolls that you've managed to pick up, or your thoughts on weapons on the sandbox right now. But if you've enjoyed this video, guys, a rating is very much appreciated below. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more D2 content. But otherwise, thanks as always for tuning in, and whatever you get up to, I hope you guys have an awesome day.